When my new neighbor moved in, nothing felt wrong. But then animals started disappearing. A few weeks later, people did too. No one knew why. Until I realized the truth. He wasn't just hiding something. He was hunting.
The neighbor from my floor. I live in a completely ordinary apartment building. An old concrete block, built decades ago, when speed mattered more than comfort. The stairwells smell of dust and dampness. The lights flicker at night. The elevator groans when it moves and sometimes stops between floors for no reason at all. Buildings like this exist in every city. People pass each other every day, recognize familiar faces, but rarely exchange more than a short nod. Thin walls, long hallways, dozens of separate lives hidden behind identical doors. When he moved in, I barely noticed. The new neighbor took the apartment directly across from mine in early autumn. I remember it only because for several days the stairwell smelled like fresh paint, mixed with something old and stale, like furniture dragged out of a long-abandoned basement. Late at night, I heard scraping sounds from behind his door, as if heavy objects were being slowly pulled across the floor. I saw him properly for the first time near the elevator. He was tall and unnaturally thin. His posture was slightly hunched, as if his body wasn't entirely comfortable carrying its own weight. His clothes were plain, outdated, clean, but clearly worn. His face was pale, his features narrow and stretched, his expression neutral. He looked at me a little longer than normal. "Hello," he said calmly. His voice was ordinary, not hoarse, not distorted, just the voice of a man. I nodded and stepped into the elevator, already pushing him out of my thoughts. At the time, nothing about him felt threatening. The first weeks passed quietly. He didn't make noise. He didn't play music. No guests ever came to his apartment. Sometimes I heard him leave late at night and return close to morning. But in our building, that meant nothing. People worked night shifts. People drank. People disappeared for a while and came back. If it had ended there, he would have remained just another shadow in the hallway. The strange things began slowly, almost gently. First, a cat from the first floor disappeared. An old ginger cat that everyone knew. It slept near the entrance during winter and stretched out on the concrete steps in summer. Someone always left food for it. One morning, it was simply gone. People shrugged. Cats wander off. A few days later, another yard cat vanished. Then another. Someone mentioned it during a conversation near the entrance, but no one seemed truly concerned. Later, dark stains were found near the trash bins behind the building. Just smears. No bodies, no fur. Some blamed stray dogs. Others talked about animal abusers. A few said wild animals had started entering the city. I would have ignored it too, if not for one small detail. Every time people discussed the missing animals, my neighbor was nearby. Never in the center of the group. Never speaking. Just standing slightly apart. Listening. Always listening. His face never showed concern, or surprise, or curiosity. Just attention. About a month later, pets started disappearing. Not yard animals, pets with owners. A woman from the third floor let her dog out for an evening walk. The leash was later found near the entrance, torn and dirty. The dog was never seen again. A cat slipped into the stairwell late at night. The security camera recorded it entering. It never came out. Notices began appearing near the elevator. Missing dog. Missing cat. Please help. The mood in the building changed. People locked their doors more carefully. Parents stopped letting children play outside after dark. Conversations in the hallway became shorter and quieter. One night, I came home late and saw my neighbor unlocking his door. He was carrying a large black bag, heavy, overfilled. The plastic stretched at the corners, and something dark was dripping from the bottom, leaving small spots on the floor. I told myself it was trash, but the smell was wrong. Sweet, thick, almost warm. I held my breath until he disappeared inside. "Good night," he said quietly, turning his head toward me. I nodded back, my throat dry. Then people started disappearing. First, a homeless man who slept behind the building near the heating pipes. Everyone knew him. He had lived there for years, always in the same spot. One day, he simply stopped showing up. Then a woman from the neighboring entrance vanished. She was last seen walking home late in the evening. The cameras showed her entering the yard. After that, nothing. The police came. They questioned residents, took statements, walked through the stairwells. I told them I hadn't seen anything, even though that same night I had heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, heavy, deliberate. And later, I heard the floor creaking in the apartment across from mine for a very long time. After that, I started paying attention. My neighbor rarely went out during the day. His curtains were always closed. Lights appeared only late at night. Sometimes I heard strange noises, scratching sounds, dull thuds, something heavy falling and being dragged across the floor. Once, in the middle of the night, I heard crying, quiet, muffled, human. I stepped into the hallway. The sound was coming from his apartment. I stood there, frozen, barely breathing. The crying stopped abruptly, like someone had turned it off. The next morning, I met him near the elevator. "Everything okay?" I asked, without knowing why. He turned to me slowly. His eyes were dark, too dark, no reflection, like holes in his face. "Of course," he said softly. "Everything is always fine." And then he smiled. It was a small smile, careful, practiced. After that, I couldn't sleep properly. I dreamed someone was standing behind my door, listening, breathing. Sometimes I woke up convinced someone was inside my apartment. One morning, I noticed small stains near my threshold, drops leading toward his door. I cleaned them. I didn't tell anyone. The breaking point came when a teenager disappeared. A boy from our building, loud, annoying, always hanging around the entrance. One evening, he didn't come home. Parents searched the yard, shouting his name. Police cars returned. The building felt tense, heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. That night, the light turned on in my neighbor's apartment. I stood in the hallway for a long time. Then I walked to his door. The smell was overwhelming now, rotting, sweet, familiar. I knocked. Silence. I knocked again. The door opened. Inside, the apartment was almost empty. No furniture, no bed, no table, just bare walls. The floor was covered in dark stains, old and fresh. In the corner lay a pile of bones, small ones, large ones, animal bones, and human ones. He stood in the center of the room. His face was no longer human. His jaw stretched too far. His teeth were long, sharp, uneven. His eyes reflected light like an animal's. "You watched too long," he said. I understood everything at once. He wasn't killing. He was feeding. He stepped toward me. I slammed the door and ran. The police arrived later. The apartment was empty, clean, as if no one had ever lived there. The neighbor was never seen again. Months passed. Disappearances stopped. Life returned to normal. Almost. Sometimes at night, I hear the elevator stop on my floor, slow footsteps in the hallway, stopping near my door, and waiting.